Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni. 143rd verses from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel Thien Thai in the USA. Rarely is found in this world anyone who, restrained by modesty, avoids reproach, as a thoroughbred horse avoids the whip. Thus the Blessed One spoke, revealing a truth that few notice and even fewer practice. In the time of the Buddha, there were many who pursued honor and status, who sought recognition, and who displayed their learning and devotion for applause. Yet, among them, there were rare ones whose conduct was like a noble horse, disciplined not through fear, not through coercion, but through inner restraint. One such story tells of a young disciple, born into a wealthy family, who possessed every comfort and yet lived with modesty. He did not flaunt his robes. He did not boast of his practice. He did not seek praise from teachers or peers. Though his understanding was deep, he spoke little, listened much, and acted with care. People around him often wondered why he did not demand respect or attention, for the world is inclined to reward the loud and the proud. Yet the Buddha recognized in him the rare jewel of restraint, a quality that is cultivated with patience and mindfulness. Just as a well-bred horse senses the whip and instinctively avoids it, this disciple moved through the world with awareness, avoiding harm and reproach, responding to challenges with equanimity. His restraint was not fear, but understanding. His avoidance of reproach was not timidity, but insight. The Buddha taught that such persons are precious in any age because they embody the harmony between freedom and discipline. The world is filled with those who act for recognition, who speak to assert power, and who clamor for approval. Yet they often meet suffering as a result. The disciple who restrains himself, who governs speech, action, and thought through modesty, navigates life without attracting unnecessary conflict. His mind is calm, his heart compassionate, and his presence itself becomes a teaching. The verse points to the subtle power of self-restraint, the quiet strength of modesty, and the freedom that arises when one does not chase the applause of others. It teaches that restraint is more valuable than force, modesty more precious than status, and avoidance of reproach more powerful than the loudest assertion. Those who practice in this way cultivate inner dignity, and their lives become examples of harmony, inspiring others without seeking to be admired. The Buddha's words illuminate the rarity of such conduct, reminding practitioners that true merit does not arise from display, but from disciplined, mindful action. Restraint protects the mind, modesty safeguards the heart, and avoidance of reproach nurtures peaceful relations. The thoroughbred horse is admired not for its color or ornament, but for its training, its awareness, and its ability to act without need for the whip. So too, the restrained practitioner is admired not for garments or titles, but for the harmony of mind, the gentleness of conduct, and the quiet avoidance of harm. This verse, therefore, is a mirror for every age, showing that the world's true treasures are not those who claim attention, but those who cultivate modesty, self-restraint, and the skillful avoidance of reproach. Moving gracefully through life like a noble being aware of cause and effect, kindness and harm, speech and silence. As the practitioner reflects on this teaching, it becomes clear that restraint is not mere obedience, nor modesty a simple act of concealment. The Buddha taught that true restraint arises from understanding the nature of life, the movement of desire, and the weight of words. A person who restrains does not need constant instruction or the fear of punishment to guide them, because wisdom itself guides every thought, every action, every intention. Avoiding reproach is not born of cowardice or timidity, but from seeing the consequences of harshness, carelessness, and impulsive speech. The one who masters restraint is like a sailor who navigates the currents with knowledge, sensing danger before it arrives and adjusting course with skill and calm. The world often prizes those who are loud, assertive, and unyielding, believing that strength comes from domination, that influence comes from volume, and that recognition comes from display. Yet the Buddha showed that the truly powerful mind is the mind that does not need to assert itself, the heart that does not need to prove its worth, and the being that moves through life without leaving trails of harm. In history, countless disciples of the Buddha were admired for their ability to endure hardship, to perform miracles, or to teach crowds. Yet the greatest among them were those whose restraint and modesty allowed them to act with precision and compassion without seeking approval. They avoided reproach not by avoidance of duty, but by careful attention to the causes and conditions of life, by acting with integrity, by speaking only when words were needed, and by listening deeply before responding. This skill transforms ordinary life into a field of practice. When a practitioner restrains the tongue from gossip, the hands from harm, the mind from craving, and the heart from judgment, they create a sanctuary for peace in a world often driven by chaos. They act like the thoroughbred horse, who moves swiftly and powerfully yet does not provoke the whip, sensing danger and avoiding unnecessary suffering. Such beings are rare not because the world is cruel, but because the mind clings to recognition, the heart seeks reward, and the self wishes to be admired. The Buddha's teaching points beyond these inclinations, showing that the greatest freedom arises not from what is gained, but from what is released. When modesty is cultivated, the practitioner neither brags nor defends, neither manipulates nor deceives, and the very absence of these tendencies becomes a form of radiance. Restraint becomes a shield, protecting the mind from agitation, the heart from turmoil, and the body from unskillful actions. Avoiding reproach becomes a natural byproduct of awareness, because when the mind is clear, harmful consequences are foreseen, and actions are guided by wisdom rather than habit or ego. The Buddha likened this quality to the thoroughbred horse, which is trained with insight and care, moving freely yet skillfully, strong yet gentle, responsive yet undisturbed by unnecessary punishment. This metaphor illuminates the subtlety of mastery in human life. A practitioner may be surrounded by chaos, provoked by criticism, or challenged by the impulses of others, yet with restraint and modesty. They navigate every circumstance with precision and grace. Their presence soothes tension, their words prevent conflict, and their actions prevent suffering. They do not need recognition, because the integrity of their being is its own reward. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that this path is rare, yet possible for anyone willing to cultivate awareness, patience, and humility. Through consistent practice, restraint becomes effortless, modesty becomes natural, and avoidance of reproach becomes a reflection of the wisdom that has matured within. In this way, life itself becomes the training ground for liberation, and every encounter, every challenge, Every moment of temptation or difficulty becomes an opportunity to practice restraint and cultivate modesty. Over time, the practitioner develops a quiet authority that does not intimidate, a peaceful presence that does not impose, and a radiant mind that does not compete. This is the rare jewel of the human heart, the treasure the Buddha points to in this verse, a treasure that is seen not by the eyes of the world, but by the eyes of wisdom, experienced not through applause, but through the deep satisfaction of a heart that has trained itself in kindness, understanding, and skillful conduct, moving through the world like a thoroughbred horse, aware, untroubled, and free. As one continues to reflect deeply on this teaching, the mind begins to see that the cultivation of restraint and modesty is not merely about outward behavior, but about transforming the inner landscape of the heart. The Buddha's words point to a subtle, yet profound principle. The external world is never the true measure of virtue, for appearances can deceive, and actions can hide the currents of intention within. The one who is restrained by modesty carries a heart that has learned to listen more than to speak, to understand more than to judge, to give more than to claim. Such a person recognizes that every word has the power to wound or to heal. Every action has the capacity to bind or to release. And every thought can either deepen confusion or cultivate clarity. Just as the thoroughbred horse learns to move without invoking the whip, the practitioner moves through life guided by awareness rather than compulsion, guided by insight rather than ego, guided by compassion rather than fear. This type of practice requires patience, for the world rarely rewards subtlety. The crowds celebrate loud proclamations, visible deeds, and dramatic displays. Yet the gentle strength of restraint remains unseen to those who judge by superficial measure. And yet, this unseen strength is more enduring than fame, more effective than aggression, and more freeing than any external display of power. The Buddha revealed that restraint and modesty protect the mind from unnecessary turmoil, the heart from needless conflict, and the body from harm. When the mind is undisturbed by praise or blame, it gains clarity. When the heart does not seek recognition, it develops compassion. And when actions arise from awareness rather than craving, suffering diminishes naturally. The practitioner learns to perceive the consequences of speech and deed before they arise, cultivating foresight that prevents mistakes, avoids reproach, and maintains harmony. This foresight is not mechanical, but born of intimate understanding, practiced consistently until it becomes instinctive, like a seasoned horse that senses the whip and steps aside without hesitation. In the human heart, this instinct arises as the ability to pause before reacting, to weigh the benefit and harm of every action, and to choose conduct that neither harms oneself nor others. Such training transforms ordinary life into a practice of the Dharma. Household responsibilities, work, social interactions, and even moments of solitude become arenas in which restraint, modesty, and awareness can flourish. When the practitioner refrains from boasting, from criticizing, and from acting impulsively, they create an environment in which understanding and harmony grow naturally. Friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers are influenced subtly, not by force, but by the example of a mind disciplined and a heart gentle. In this way, the Buddha's teaching becomes alive in everyday experience. Avoidance of reproach is not about avoiding duty or responsibility. but about skillfully navigating life so that harm is minimized and peace is maximized. The restrained practitioner does not withdraw from challenges, but meets them with discernment and care. Like the thoroughbred horse that moves quickly and powerfully without provoking the whip. The world often tempts individuals to react with pride, anger, or haste, but the one trained in modesty knows the value of measured response. Patience, observation, and discernment replace impulsive action, creating a life guided by wisdom rather than habit. Over time, restraint and modesty develop into a radiance that touches all beings without effort. Words spoken are kind and purposeful. Actions taken are skillful and timely. Even silence communicates peace, and presence alone conveys steadiness and compassion. The Buddha taught that these qualities are rare because they require not only discipline, but the insight to recognize that the self is not the measure of life, that recognition is not the goal, and that true freedom lies in releasing the desire for approval. The practitioner who embodies this teaching moves through life with a quiet dignity, unaffected by the clamor of the world, yet deeply responsive to the needs of others. They act without seeking reward, speak without craving attention, and serve without expectation. Such restraint cultivates trust, respect, and harmony in all relationships, and gradually, the influence of such a being extends far beyond immediate interactions. Their presence becomes a subtle but powerful force for peace, a living example of the Dharma in action, teaching without preaching, guiding without commanding, and inspiring without display. Just as the thoroughbred horse responds gracefully to conditions, avoiding the whip not through fear, but through understanding and skill, so too the disciplined practitioner navigates life with insight, avoiding unnecessary suffering, minimizing conflict, and walking the path of wisdom and compassion. The Buddha's verse, therefore, is not a statement about rarity for its own sake, but an invitation to cultivate restraint, to practice modesty, and to live in such a way that reproach loses its power over the mind. The disciple who heeds this teaching gradually transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the mundane into the sacred, and the fleeting moments of life into opportunities for awakening, embodying the subtle, profound, and gentle power that the verse celebrates. A power that quietly and steadily touches the hearts of all beings and ripens the seed of liberation within oneself. As the teaching of this verse settles deeply within the heart, the practitioner comes to see that true restraint, modesty, and the skillful avoidance of reproach are the quiet foundations of a life in harmony with the Dharma. The Buddha revealed that these qualities are rare not because they are unattainable, but because they require vigilance, awareness, and a gentle strength that does not seek reward. One who walks this path does not need to assert themselves, to compete for recognition, or to respond to every criticism, because the heart is already secure, steady, and at peace. Restraint guides speech, action, and thought, preventing harm to self and others. Modesty tempers pride, softens judgment, and opens the heart to learn and to serve. Avoidance of reproach is the natural result of insight, foreseeing the effects of conduct, and choosing paths that nurture harmony and understanding. Like the thoroughbred horse, trained with care, sensitive to the whip, yet moving freely and powerfully without being forced. The practitioner moves through life with awareness, skill, and compassion. Every action becomes an expression of wisdom, every word a reflection of kindness, every thought a source of clarity. In embodying these qualities, one lives the Dharma fully, demonstrating that virtue is not measured by spectacle or external recognition, but by the quiet, steady cultivation of the mind and heart. This rare jewel of restraint and modesty is the path of peace, the path of freedom, and the path of awakening. The practitioner who cultivates it touches countless lives, not through grand gestures, but through the gentle power of example, inspiring harmony, understanding, and the ripening of wisdom wherever they walk. Thank you for watching my video. Namalamat Ba. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.